From the adorable pronouncements of toddlers to wise insults from our adult children, talking to our kids can be an absolute joy or a total horror show. Every parent remembers a day when our 3-year-old wouldn't stop crying, our middle schooler gave us a 3-day silent treatment, or we screwed up when talking with a teen about coming home 3 hours after curfew. Communication is one of the most important safety skills we can learn and apply as parents, because communication is how we learn about many dangers and how we teach our kids how to avoid or overcome them. It's an art and a science some people spend entire professional lives beginning to understand. We could go wide and deep into this topic, but today I want to share 5 simple communication techniques so powerful they're basically Jedi Mind tricks. They're easy to learn, not that hard to use, and they can make a surprising difference starting right now. Number 5, rehearse the conversation. What if I told you that you already practice a habit that can help you communicate more effectively and affectionately with your kids? You know those arguments you have with somebody who's not there, where you practice what you want to say or should have said when it all happened 2 days ago? We can do that before sitting down to talk with our kids. We can rehearse what we'll say, practice keeping our cool when predictable arguments pop up, and use that chance to vent our frustration and fear over whatever issue needs talking about. Lawyers, salespeople, and negotiators all rehearse the conversation before a word is spoken for real. Athletes and performers rehearse constantly. If you try this before your next capital B, capital T, big talk, you might be surprised what a difference it makes. Number 4, use the sword of insertion. Sometimes our kids decide to start an argument when there's simply no time to get into it at that moment, like arguing over what to wear when you needed to be in the car 5 minutes ago. Sometimes they get so wound up while venting about something that their words make them angrier by the minute. In either case, we need to interrupt them. But interrupting is rude and dismissive and likely to make them even more argumentative, unless you use what the verbal judo people call the sword of insertion. The sword of insertion is still interrupting, but it interrupts respectfully by using the following script. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I understand everything you've told me so far. See how that stops them in their tracks while still telling them that you value what they're saying? Follow up by restating the most important parts of their frustration as you understand it. If you have time to continue the conversation, you can now do it on a better footing. If you don't, you can restate their concern and promise to address it at a better time. Either way, you've reestablished control of the conversation without hurting anybody's feelings. Number 3, take 5. This one's simple, but sometimes hard to remember and even harder to do in the moment. Remember, it's fair for you to take a break if your emotions get too hot, and that it's okay for your kids to do the same. If you say, I'm too upset right now to talk about this productively, let's take a break and get back to this later, it can be very powerful. For some folks, they can take a timeout like this and then just go on to talk about other things. Other folks, myself included, need to take a physical break away for a while to calm down. Either way, you stop an escalating situation before people say hurtful things, and then when you come back to the conversation later, it will be much better for everybody involved. Number 2, lower your voice. There's a saying in martial arts, when your fists rise, lower your emotions. When your emotions rise, lower your fists. That applies to verbal confrontation too. The angrier you get, the more frustrating your child becomes, the lower your own volume should be. There are 3 reasons for this. First, there's resonance between your voice and your mood. If you use a low volume, it will lower your emotions. If you start to yell, you will become angrier. This is just the way most people are wired. Second, our kids take their cues from us. If we model a calm voice during arguments, they will eventually, do the same. Our kids don't always listen to what we say, but they are constantly watching what we do. Third, if we talk quietly enough, it forces them to listen. They have to be quiet with their voices and lean in and move less just to hear our words. This creates a calmer, quieter, more attentive space to talk in, all of which makes it more likely that you'll have a productive and loving conversation. Before we get to number 1, let's discuss 2 runners-up. They're both powerful and important, and they're here instead of the top 5 because they're more concepts than hacks. Not something you can just whip out and apply, but rather ways to think about talking with our kids. The first is, always be their shelter. Our first job as parents is to be loving and supportive, even when we're ready to lose our cool. Most experts now agree that the world provides consequence enough for most mistakes our kids will make, and our role should be to help our children meet those consequences with courage and grace, not to add the punishment with lectures, tirades, and yelling. The second is the 5 universal truths of human interaction, also coming from verbal judo. These are, Everyone needs to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of behavior. Everybody needs to be asked rather than told. Everybody needs to know why they're being asked. Everybody needs options instead of threats. And everybody needs a second chance. These truths were first developed to help police deal with drunk people, which is surprisingly similar to being a parent dealing with an angry child or teen. Okay, number 1, apologize. This can be hard to stomach for parents. We often feel like, as the authority and person with the most knowledge in the room, we shouldn't admit failure and fault when arguing with our children. But the truth is, we make mistakes all the time. Most parents have at most 3 kids, and the average has less than 2. It's not like we get a lot of practice. We're going to mess up. And when we mess up, if we apologize sincerely to our kids, that goes a long way. Our children have very little real power, and when we humble ourselves to own our mistakes, that builds them up in ways few other things can. They can't ground us or take away our screen time, but they can see us take responsibility for things we do wrong. And when those things are part of an important conversation, it can change the tone and outcome of that conversation instantaneously. Well, there you have it, the top 5 Jedi mind tricks for talking with our kids. Is there anything you disagree with? Anything I forgot? Tell me about it in the comments. For more tips about communicating with our kids and other aspects of safety, check out the videos here to the right, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The liking helps us bring more content to you, and the subscribing helps you not miss it when it comes. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.